The Right Side with Doug Billings.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to The Right Side with Doug Billings. Today's topic, child trafficking and grooming. It's a topic that we don't spend enough time on. Trafficking is one thing. We're all aware of it, I think, especially in this era of the Epstein files and so forth. We know what it means when we talk about human trafficking, whether it's somebody like Epstein or whether it's coming up and being perpetrated through porous borders and lack of immigration control. Also a topic that we don't spend enough time with. Many states have great trafficking laws in place, but they don't mention the term grooming. Now, grooming can be a good thing when you're being groomed to be the CEO of a company, you're being groomed to be an athlete, you're being groomed to be a business leader, a politician, whatever. But grooming can also be diabolically evil when it comes to trying to take advantage of children. So the call to action really for this show today is to get in touch with your legislatures and make sure that your state has and gets grooming laws on the books that will put these monsters away. We have talked about this for 5 years on this program, and today Michelle Peterson will join me. She's from Illinois, a mother whose son was being groomed by one of his teachers. You're going to see an introductory video where she talks about that on the news. It is shocking. Many people would, I think, rather just compartmentalize this and not talk about it. But ladies and gentlemen, we've got to talk about it. And although this show is not related for my run for Kansas governor, I will make it a day one priority for Kansas, an executive order to order the Kansas Highway Patrol, the Kansas National Guard to hunt down these monsters in Kansas. And we're going to do legislative work where we can get grooming on the books that will put these people away for life. Look, there can be no penalty too severe for trying to groom a child into sex acts or into all other diabolical acts that you can imagine and more. Ladies and gentlemen, this episode of The Right Side with Doug Billings is now upon you. Are you ready? Let's go.
Hey everybody, my name is General Mike Flynn, and I'm here to do a big shout out for my great friend and one of the best in the business, Mr. Doug Billings. Right Side with Doug Billings, Right Side with Doug Billings. Doug is the future of the airwaves when it comes to independent broadcasters and podcasters. He is the new Rush Limbaugh. He's exactly what America needs right now, looking for honesty, looking for wisdom, looking for truth, looking for patriotism. Listen to Doug Billings at Right Side with Doug Billings. God bless you and God bless America, and thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are winning. We're winning, winning, winning. Welcome to The Right Side with Doug Billings. Are you ready?
We are not liberal snowflakes who melt away in the face of tragedy, adversity, and challenge. We are a covenant nation under God, and his divine providence is not dead and it's not gone. It is living within each and every one of you. And you will bring it to life in such a way that the world has never seen before. We never back down. We never give up. We march forward.
Teenager has been receiving thousands of text messages from a teacher, many sexually explicit, dozens in the middle of the night. You might believe your child would tell you if this happened, but as NBC5's Phil Rogers discovered, that's not always the case.
The story unfolded here in Morris, southwest of Chicago, as middle America as it comes.
He wanted to make a sex video, put it straight out there.
Andrew Kozik says he had begun texting Stefan Belegno, a teacher here at Morris High School, because he was having trouble on the baseball team. But before long, he says Belegno was offering him money for oral sex.
It started off at $500 and then $1,000 and then $1,500.
But Andrew never told anyone, and no one knew until his mother heard him talking to Belegno on the phone.
He has no business calling you at 11 o'clock at night. That's completely inappropriate.
When she learned the two had been communicating by text message, Andrew's mother went to her computer and logged into the family's account. She found thousands of messages.
I was just sick because I knew in my heart, I'm like, this isn't just regular text messaging.
The family went to police, who searched Andrew's phone and found nearly 6,000 messages between the two. But only about a tenth of those could be recovered. And indeed, they are troubling. We can't read some of the more graphic messages, but among the more benign, the teacher writes, "When does the kissing begin?" "Icky," the student says. "How about if we just go at it and not video it?" the teacher declares. And on another occasion, "When you're 18, we can give each other everything."
Sometimes males to bond with males are crude.
Raymond Wigel is Belegno's lawyer. He insists the teacher was only trying to help Andrew through a bullying incident on the baseball team.
You say that these text messages do not indicate criminal activity. They certainly indicate stupidity for a teacher to be sending these messages.
Absolutely.
Wigel says he and his client concede bad judgment, but they point to the thousands of other texts no one read, as well as huge gaps in the transcripts.
There's a stupid intent, but there was not an evil intent to have sex with this young man.
I don't care what context you put it in. When you offer somebody money for sex, that's solicitation.
So why didn't Andrew tell someone? Records show at one point he even told a DCFS investigator the teacher's messages had not crossed the line.
Why'd you tell him?
I didn't want him to lose his job. I didn't want him to get in trouble.
Belegno was found guilty of indecent solicitation of a minor and unlawful grooming. He is to be sentenced next month.
I want him to have to register as a sex offender. The jail time would just be icing on the cake.
Michelle Peterson says she and her son wanted to talk to us to stress the importance of reporting incidents like this. 18 of these texts were after midnight, 15 after 3 a.m. The Grundy County State's attorney says he believes it's a cautionary tale about giving children digital technology this Christmas without firm guidelines on how it will be used.
Wow, everyone, that video, that tells the story of what I've often told you happens in every zip code in this country. I don't care how rural the zip code is. I don't care what state the zip code is in. Trafficking, child and human trafficking and grooming happens in every zip code, and we are not going to allow it to continue on our watch. That's why for me, although, as you know, this show, The Right Side, is not connected to my run for governor of Kansas. I've commented publicly that child trafficking, human trafficking, is a day one executive order for me, where I will order the Kansas Highway Patrol and the Kansas National Guard to hunt down these monsters responsible for that. Joining me today, a friend who I met on the Reawaken America tour circuit some months or perhaps years ago now with the Clay Clark Reawaken America tour. Michelle Peterson and I met, and she came to one of my conferences down in Branson, Missouri as well. Her son was a victim of what we call grooming. And although some states, including the one you may live in, ladies and gentlemen, have some legislation regarding trafficking, the term grooming is one we're going to take a little bit of a look at today and talk about it and how it needs to be addressed in your state legislatures as well. But we'll get into all of that as I talk with my friend Michelle Peterson. Michelle, welcome to The Right Side.
Hi, thank you for having me.
It's good to see you again after all this time. And we were just talking a little bit before we came on air here about how what a blessing the Reawaken America tour is, and how we've met so many people that are involved in the movement and have networked with so many. I consider you to be an American grassroots hero with regards to what you're doing to protect children from the monsters that would either dare to try to traffic them or groom them into a situation that is not at all going to be tolerated when it's all said and done.
Right, and I give all that to God. I mean, being connected with the Reawaken, I had told Clay Clark before I was like his poster child for the Reawakens. Because everything that they were trying to do to bring everything locally so that you can awaken the people in your area, that's what we've been trying to do here. And I had taken a bunch of people from my area to several Reawakens, and that's what we've been trying to do. So initially I thought my whole reason for being in this fight had to do with COVID and just waking people up to the atrocities of that whole pandemic. But that wasn't the case. And after going to a Reawaken event in Nashville in January of 23, I met a trafficking investigator named Amy Coelho. And I'll tell you more about that story when I met her, but it was so surreal meeting her and then realizing really what my why is in this whole thing. And you guys saw the clip of with my son and I that was back in 2013. That was after we went to trial. So what happened in 2010, I overheard a conversation in October of that year that really alerted me that something was really off. And I asked my son who he was talking to on the phone, as the clip said, and he told me it was a teacher and a coach at Morris High School here in Illinois. We're about 80 miles southwest of Chicago, and this is a rural farming community. So this can happen anywhere, just like Doug said. And we never thought this would ever happen to us. We're just a normal family, and I'm a physical therapist, and my son was playing sports in high school and coached his teams all growing up. And so it's just, you never think this is going to happen to you. But when I overheard that conversation, I told him he needed to hang up the phone. And I immediately went down to the computer, looked up that phone number, and then saw thousands of text messages between my son's phone number and that phone number, all the way back to May of that year. And it was a huge battle and a fight. And the fight was not at the school. The school was kind of the linchpin in this whole thing, which you don't normally find that. But the principal had been a counselor before. And when I went in and talked to him, and I could just tell by the look in his face, and I initially told him about this, and I could tell he knew that there was something very off and very wrong. But here's the thing with grooming, and grooming is like you have normal grooming, right? You groom people to be a CEO of a company, you groom your kids to be of good moral character, but this is unlawful grooming where somebody in a position of authority tries to gain the trust of another person to be able to do something nefarious to them, and typically it's to try to have sex with that child. But they don't only just groom that child, they groom the community and they groom the families. And most of the time, it is somebody you know. So the whole white van syndrome, it's not really a thing, right? So it's not usually somebody that you don't know. It's somebody that you know personally. So either a family member, a friend, a teacher, clergy, whoever that is close to you that will gain your trust to try to do something to your child. And so after I talked to the principal, he met with both my son and the teacher, and they said that there was no wrongdoing. My son at 16 years old just wanted this to go away. So when he started texting my son, he was 15 and the teacher was 34. And, he offered him money, wanted to make a sex video with him, would refer to his body part as my little guy, would ask, am I ever going to get to see the little guy? And so I needed to find somebody who could pull the messages off his phone because I looked at my son's phone typically 2 or 3 times a week to look at the messages, his emails, what apps he had, that sort of thing. Never thinking this ever, right? I'm just like, okay, so don't be texting cuss words to your friends because if their parents are looking at this too, then they're going to think badly of you. And because he knew I was doing that, he would delete every message that came in. But because phones are computers, I had to find somebody who could pull those messages off the phone. So after a few months of doing this, or actually a few weeks of doing this and looking into trying to find somebody to get those messages off, I found a detective in Will County, which is only about 20 minutes from here. And I told my son I needed his phone because I found somebody who could pull the messages off, and his face just went green. And I said, is there something you need to tell me? He's like, I can't tell you. He's like, I'll talk to the detective and the principal tomorrow. And that's when he admitted to them what the messages said. I sent him to bed that night, though, and we had a discussion about suicide. I wanted him to know that nothing is ever worth taking his life over. So these are difficult conversations to have with your kids. But if you find yourself in a situation like this, you really need to have that conversation because that would have been my worst nightmare. And through all of this, and just letting your kids know that you love them and you will love them through this, no matter what. And he didn't want to come forward initially. And I let him know, I said, this is no longer about you. This is about the kid across the street and the kids down the street. If something happens to one of them, how do you face their parents knowing you could have done something about it? And that's when he decided to come forward then. So it was a 3-year battle, and we finally got this guy convicted. But here's how like God's hand was all over this from the beginning. My biggest fight was with the state's attorney's office. They really just wanted me to go away. And it took them about 6 months to get the messages off the phone, between 6 and 8 months. And the first guy that I found, he was having difficulty because Apple had just done an upgrade and he couldn't pull the messages. So Apple nor AT&T would help get the messages off the phone. And they don't have to. Even with a subpoena, they will drag their feet. So that's another law I'm going to be working on next, is that they have to help to get these messages off the phone. But I felt like they were like really kind of just stalling. And I ended up having a friend who had a husband as a Secret Service agent at the time. And they introduced me to a Secret Service agent who was on a pedophile task force. And he said, Michelle, they just want you to go away. This is too much work for just one kid. I said, but it's my kid. And he said, I'm going to give you 2 business cards. Keep one for yourself, take one down to the state's attorney's office and tell them if they don't have the messages off the phone within the next 7 days, you're going to turn it over to the feds. He goes, I'll have them off of there in 15 minutes. So I did that, and we had the messages back 3 days later, which tells me they were probably sitting on them the whole time. And had a meeting with 2 assistant state's attorneys and my husband, who is my son's stepfather. And they had the text messages, the stack of messages printed off in front of them, but they said they didn't have enough to go on, and there were too many gaps in the transcripts. And I asked to see the messages, and as I'm reading through them, which they were a little reluctant to give them to me at first, but I'm reading through them, and everything I told you about was in there: the money, the video, referring to his body part as my little guy, and I had tears streaming down my face, and I don't remember ever being so angry, Doug. I
Yeah.
was yelling at them, and I said, you guys need to do your jobs. And they all three, even my husband, looked at me like, oh my gosh, like what have we done? And my husband was kicking me under the table. I'm like, you kick me one more time, I'm kicking you out that door. Like they really didn't know what to do with me.
The mama
And
bear has
I
awoken.
teased, what's that?
The mama bear has awoken, ladies and gentlemen.
Right. And that's why I came up with this logo.
Yep.
Because I tease because, they have those logos now at the mama bears. You have the mama and then the cub behind, and they're just nice, calm, and walking. I'm like, that's not what you look like when you're fighting for your kids. This is what I looked like. And it was not a pretty sight, I'm sure. But anyway, it back and forth, and it took forever. They, even after having the messages, they never charged this guy with anything, didn't indict him. So a few months later, the principal calls me and he said, I really need to talk to you. So I go down there, and he said, I have told them that they need to subpoena his personnel file, but they won't do it. So I go back down to the state's attorney's office and ask him why they weren't subpoenaing the personnel file. And he said, well, what could possibly be in there that we need? I said, what skin is it off of your back? Can you just get it? So they get the subpoena, and then the attorneys at the school won't release it to them until I come down and sign off on it. And they use the HIPAA law because my son's a minor and his name is all over this. So I go in there, and this principal had a meeting with the superintendent, the teacher, and the union rep. And he asked him flat out, did you ever offer offer Andrew money for sex? Did you want to make a sex video? Did you refer to his body part as my little guy? And he said he put his head down, shook his head in affirmation, and said yes. I'm like, we got him. He signed this. I go down to the state's attorney's office. I tell him what was in there. And he said, why'd they let you see it? And I told him because of HIPAA law. He said they didn't have to do that. I said, honestly, I think they let me see it because they knew how much trouble I was having down here with you. And if I didn't see it there, I'd never know what was in there. So if he's not arrested in the next 7 days, I'm going to have every major news station on your front lawn. So he waited the full 7 days, but then he did indict him. And then we went status hearing after status hearing. So this started in 2010. We ended up voting in a new state's attorney in 2012. And in January of 2013, we met with him. And now my son is 18 at this time. And he said, I think we're going to have to take a plea deal. It's just been too long. They're going to say that you can't remember everything. There's too many gaps in the transcripts. So after all of this time, if he got a plea deal, he'd still be able to teach. He'd have to pay a fine. No sex offender registry, no nothing. So we go to court then in August of 2013. And my son turned 19 in June. And he's going to take this plea deal, but he decides then, by the grace of God, that he wants to take it to trial. Everybody was floored because that never happens. And I can only say that God...
Who wanted to take it to trial, your son or this attorney?
The teacher.
The teacher
decided he wanted to take it to trial.
Oh, okay. Wow. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And so the state's attorneys were floored. They're like, that never happens. And so they end up meeting with us a couple days later. And his first assist told us that there was a new grooming law that was put in place in Illinois in July of 2013, so just the month before. It was signed into law in 2012, but it didn't become effective until July of 2013. And he said, everything that's in this law is everything he's done to your son, to your family, and to this community, but there's no precedent set, so it's going to be difficult to get. We then go to court in October of 2013 and get the very first grooming conviction in the United States. Yeah. And a solicitation of a minor was his other charge. He ended up appealing and got the solicitation taken off, but the conviction for the grooming stood. And he ended up doing 30 days in jail. He had to register as a sex offender for only 10 years. He can never teach again, and he paid like a $2,700 fine. And like I said, my son was 15 when this all started, in and out of counseling, even over the last 16 years. Because there's things that will trigger him, and he never had to touch my son for him to have a lifelong impact on him. And I give God all the credit for bringing us through all of this. Sometimes you got to walk through it to be able to make a difference on the other side.
Yeah, it's one heck of a story, and I've often said that when we walk through adversity, challenge, and tragedy, as conservatives and as God-fearing people, although we can't see them, we also realize that there are blessings waiting to be born in all this. We understand that it's difficult. Tragedy is always difficult. Adversity and challenge are not always pleasant, but there are blessings waiting to be born if we can just see through this. And I mean, that applies to anything in life.
Right.
We can think back, through any number of examples of that. My question about this first state's attorney that you guys had to deal with, do you know, was that a liberal person, a liberal elected official?
He was not elected. And there's the other thing too, is I think most of them are selected anyway, but he was not elected into this position because the state's attorney that was elected at the time moved into a judge position. So this guy was appointed in that position as a placeholder until the next election. But he was liberal. And that's the thing too, is I don't understand why this has become a political thing. We all have children. These are our kids. This is our future. This should not be a partisan issue. This is a God issue. This is a spiritual issue.
Well, liberals don't believe in God primarily. I mean, most of the time. And look, I've spoken about, I won't take much of your time away from you. I want you to finish your story. But I have spoken for 5 years on this program how the radical left agenda in this country, especially with regards to crime, is something that these people do on purpose because they want to purposefully transform America away from the divine providence of God and the intent of the founding fathers. You look across the country, and why is it that radical left Democrat district attorneys and states attorneys general and so forth, local prosecutors like the one or the state official that you're talking about, why is it that they don't prosecute with extreme prejudice these kinds of crimes and shooting crimes and murder and rape? And when they do prosecute them, they're either given light sentences, if they're sentenced at all, or they're let out early, and all of these things we see and hear about. And so the only conclusion I can draw from all of that, Michelle, is that they want them out on the streets because it perpetrates and delivers to us more chaos, which is their patron demon. We have patron saints on our side of the aisle. They've got patron demons, and I can get on a huge soapbox about this. I believe it's why we saw the George Floyd riots, why we saw the border crisis, why we see radical left policies in this country. They believe in riots, looting, arson, and anarchy because they think that when chaos rains down upon us, we are more inclined to believe that the big government is there and the only way that we can be saved. They don't believe in local accountability, individual responsibility, and the rule of law. That's my rant about that topic.
Right. And that's the thing too, is even like every time I came back against the state's attorney, I was like, okay, so is there a target on my back now? Are they going to come after me for some reason? Right. And now after researching a lot of this, I think somebody on the inside, whether it was him, I have no idea. Somebody had to have been involved, right? Because they were trying to protect this guy. So I have no idea. I can't prove any of that. But just after doing research and knowing that a lot of these people and elected officials are involved at the highest levels, right? We're seeing that now with the Epstein files. And, so you just don't know where that could have gone or what could have happened. But just knowing that after meeting this trafficking investigator, Amy, she said, had he gotten his hands on my son, he could have trafficked him, even if only in his own little circle, So that never crossed my mind.
Well,
never crossed my mind.
Yeah, it's terrifying as a parent. Obviously, it's disgusting on multiple levels, and most people, I think, try to compartmentalize this topic and they don't want to deal with it. So I'm grateful and thankful for you for taking it head on. The call to action for people watching and listening to you is that, ladies and gentlemen, you've got to get in touch with your state to see what kind of legislation you have on the books regarding trafficking. A lot of states have good trafficking laws, but they don't deal with grooming, and grooming is incredibly serious. And as you just heard, this is how these monsters get their hands on these kids. We have got to do a legislative analysis. There's a great gal, a friend of ours, Michelle and I, Allie Hopper, who works for guardagainsttrafficking.org. She does legislative analysis on various states, and we've discovered here in Kansas, just as an example, we have some good trafficking laws on the books. I admit that, but that they don't mention grooming. So again, for me, it's a day one issue. If I were lucky enough to win the governorship out here in Kansas, it's a day one issue for me. This is something that's going to be stopped. Michelle, where can people find you and offer support?
At my website, michellepeterson.org, I do have an X account as well. It's Michelle Pete 77. So they can follow me there as well. So what I'm really looking for is somebody who has a personal relationship with a state rep or a senator who'd be willing to sponsor this bill. If I send an email out, it just goes into the ether. But if you have somebody that you know that you can personally text and say, hey, go to this website, look up this woman, and there's a contact me page at the our tab on my website, and it's the email on there. They can email me. It goes directly to me. I also have up there Andrew's Law, which is a tab at the top, and our conviction is on there, as well as all of the state laws that are in place right now, aside from the newest ones, which are Montana and Louisiana. I gotta get those uploaded yet. But Montana has the most egregious law right now, which is awesome. It should be model legislation. So if somebody grooms a child who is 18 years old and grooms a child 12 years of age or younger, it's 100 years in prison, no chance of parole for the first 25. If they get out at 25, it's a lifelong satellite surveillance. So that should be model legislation. And when I
What
talk
state
to
is that again, Michelle?
what's that?
What state is that?
That is Montana, and it's
Montana.
Montana
God bless
House Bill
Montana.
82.
Yep.
House Bill 82 in Montana. So people can look that up. But that will be uploaded on my website, hopefully by the end of the weekend. And when I met Amy Coelho, though, at the Reawaken, she said, you know, she thought we had the only grooming conviction because she thought they were taking a plea deal. And so that's where we started. I got introduced to Allie Hopper through General Flynn and Mary Flynn O'Neill. And Allie started working in Florida and looking through their criminal code, soon realized they didn't have a grooming law to even amend. So then we started working, getting a grooming law put in place in Florida. And we really like pulled back because then we found out that no other state other than Illinois had a standalone grooming law. So nothing happened to these pedophiles until they actually defiled a child. So after Florida went through, we got in contact with Mark Thompson through Emily Peterson in Iowa. No relation, but Emily is a mama bear in Iowa as
I
well.
know
So
Emily.
she
Yep.
introduced us to Mark Thompson. Mark Thompson then got the grooming law passed in Iowa, and then Arizona came in after that. They had an issue, got a hold of the laws in Florida, Iowa, and Illinois, and then they have a law. And now Georgia also has a law. There was a mom there who was trying to get a grooming law put in place after her daughter was molested by a YMCA gymnastics coach. She'd been trying for 3 years to get her grooming law in place and couldn't do it. But after these other three states fell, then Georgia then fell. And then this year it's been Montana and Louisiana. So there are now currently 7 states that have a grooming law in place that I know of for sure. So just look at your criminal code, look at your state. And we are trying to amend the current grooming law in Illinois. It's been in committee for the last 2 years, never called for a vote. But we're trying to amend the current grooming law, and that will be called Andrew's Law after my son. And it's to make it so that somebody charged with grooming and or trafficking cannot take a plea deal. It will increase the sex offender registry to lifelong instead of just 10 years. And it will also include places of businesses that are privately owned. When the sex offender registry was written back in the 70s, places such as Chuck E. Cheese, Dave and Buster's, they didn't exist. And these are literal playgrounds for these guys. So we want to make it so they can't go into those types of establishments. Yep. It will also include like movie theaters, Six Flags in Florida. It would include, you know, Disney and Universal. So to keep these pedophiles out of those areas. But in committee, they were told to stand down and not call it for a vote. And we asked who it was that asked them to stand down, but nobody could tell us. We don't know if it was Governor Pritzker or if it was the Speaker of the House. But if it was Governor Pritzker, just know that they're involved at the highest levels. His cousin, Tom Pritzker, is the CEO of Hyatt Hotels, and he's in Jeffrey Epstein's black book under 13 different phone numbers. So
we're going to shine a light on it, Michelle. We're going to
shine a light on all of this.
Yep, we're going to shine a light.
Yep, and take them down because this needs to stop. We need to protect our children.
Ladies and gentlemen, please head over to michellepeterson.org. And Michelle has 2 L's in it, peterson.org. Support her, learn all you can, and send her some information about congressmen and women and legislators who may be able to help her get these things on the books. Michelle, I can't thank you enough. I'm going to give you the last 30 seconds to close it up for us. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. And just know that there are things out there that you can use. On my website, you can find an app on there called the Bark app. And that can get you access to your kids' phones where you can get real-time text messages going in and out from their phone on your phone. So if I would have had something like that, I would have seen these messages coming in. look for any changes in your child's behavior. If they're withdrawn, they're tired, they don't want to go and do their normal activities. These are things that I wish I would have picked up on right away and would have known earlier that something was going wrong. So just really stay in tune with your kids, stay in their business because they are your future. They are our future. So don't feel like you're overstepping at all because you got to love your kids more than you're afraid that they're going to hate you for getting in their business.
Amen. Michelle Peterson, ladies and gentlemen, at Michelle with 2 L's, Peterson.org. Head over there, support, and learn what you need to do to protect your children against this just a terrible epidemic, really. It happens in every zip code in this country, and we're gonna shine a light as bright as we can on this. Michelle, listen, we will meet in prayer about all of this. I'll keep you and your son in prayer, and thank you for everything, your bravery, your dedication, your love as a mother to come forth and tell your story. I appreciate it, and I'm glad that we know each other. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the right side. Hey, we are in this thing together. Believe it. For the Republic. Cheers.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.
I want to tell you about the good people over at EMP Shield, electromagnetic pulse, ladies and gentlemen. It can fry your home electrical system or your vehicle's electrical system. But if you attach one of these, now this is for your breaker box at home. There's a smaller version that goes on your battery of your car, your vehicle, that will prevent it from being fried in the event of an electromagnetic pulse. Because as you know, thanks to Administrator Biden, many people coming across the border now who don't exactly have the best of intentions. Protect yourself. EMPshield.com. Get huge discounts over there if you use the promo code DOUG.